here in Washington. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Senator, welcome back.
Thank
Talk
you.
To you Sunday.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you so much. Great to have you here this week. Okay, this is how Politico described a top Democrat reacting to your introduction of this bill. Graham's stunt is a godsend and helps us remind voters Republicans want to ban abortion everywhere. And from the conservative side, you got DeRoy Murdoch over at American Spectator. He said, basically, you've handed the left a box of grenades.
Okay, well, let me just say what I believe. Number one, I'm pro-life, even in an election year. And to those who suggest that being pro-life is losing politics, I reject that. So listen to what I'm saying, and you decide today who you're with. Chuck Schumer introduced legislation several months ago that would allow abortion on demand up to the moment of birth, like China and North Korea, for the entire nation. What did I do in response? I said at 15 weeks, when the baby can feel pain, it sucks its thumbs, that we're going to ban abortion except in the cases of rape, incest, life of the mother. We're talking almost 4 months into the pregnancy. It puts us in line with France is at 12 weeks, Germany, England is at 14 weeks. Only in Washington is it extreme to protect a baby at 15 weeks from an excruciating death. The only thing I got going for me is every pro-life group in America and about 70% of the American people. So I don't apologize for being pro-life. I think the pro-life movement has found a position that most Americans will agree upon. There'll be plenty of pro-choice people who will say at 15 weeks, we should ban the late-term abortions, exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother. The people are with me, and the Democratic Party is extreme on border, they're extreme on crime, they're extreme on inflation. And to my Republican colleagues, now's the time to stand up and be counted. The pro-life movement is counting on you. When you're asked about abortion, the answer can't be, I'd like to lower inflation. Give a logical answer.
Okay, so but let me get you to this. This is what you said back in June. This is around the time that the Supreme Court was getting ready to overturn Roe v. Wade, which you guys had argued for to send it back to the states. Here's what you said.
There's nothing in the Constitution that creates a right to abortion as a constitutional principle. This was judge-made, out-of-cloth law. Now, what this court has done is taken us back to pre-1973, where each state can decide through their elected officials when life begins and how to treat life.
Okay, back to the states. Here's what President Biden said. When a lawmaker goes from touting states' rights to touting a nationwide ban, it becomes clear they're not concerned with the Constitution. You've got to explain the pivot.
Okay, number one, if you know anything about me, Shannon, for 20 years I've been supporting federal legislation banning late-term abortions.
But you said their states should make these decisions.
The states, here's what Dobbs says, elected officials can make the decision, state or federal. I'm not inconsistent. In 2020, I had a bill on the floor of the United States Senate right across the Capitol that banned abortion at 20 weeks because the baby can feel pain. I had 51 Republicans voting with me and 2 Democrats. To suggest that I'm new to the game, opposing late-term abortion is ridiculous.
No one's suggesting that.
Listen, I was the author of the Unborn Victims of Violence Act that made it a crime to hurt a baby if you attack the mother. You'd be charged with 2 crimes. If you attack a mother and you hurt the baby, it passed 72 votes in the United States Senate. I never suggested there's no place for the unborn in Washington, D.C. If you tell the pro-life movement that we're out of business in the nation's capital, that we can't set some minimum national standard to prevent Chinese abortion policy in Maryland or California, they'll be revoked by the pro-life community.
Okay.
The people are with me. What am I saying? I will not sit on the sidelines and watch this nation become China when it comes to aborting babies up to the moment of birth. I reject that. I will continue to introduce legislation at the national level setting a minimum standard at 15 weeks, no abortion except for life, rape, save the life of the mother, rape, incest.
Yes, your record on that is clear. It's the timing that has everybody scratching their heads, because Axios says
I'm scratching my head.
You didn't ask Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
I've been doing this for...
Okay, but here's what he said. Here's what he says now about this being a national federal issue. Here's what he said.
I think most of the members of my conference prefer that this be dealt with at the state level.
Has been the argument for overturning Roe. So when did you tell him?
That is not the argument for overturning Roe.
Well, that was part of the argument. The Republicans have consistently said, and an amicus brief to the Supreme Court, get rid of Roe, send this back to the states. When did you tell him, and what was his reaction?
I have been, the pro-life community met with him. Senator McConnell is a good man. He's a pro-life candidate. He voted for my bill in 2020 to ban abortion on demand at 20 weeks because the child can feel pain. We're not talking about transportation policy here. To all the states' rights people, there's a lot of things been done in this country under the name of states' rights that was wrong. This is a child in being, developing, becoming a human being. At 20 weeks, you encourage the mother and the father to sing to the unborn baby because they can associate your voice with who you are. At 15 weeks, the baby can feel pain. You provide anesthesia to save the baby's life when you operate. To expect the pro-life community to sit on the sidelines and watch abortion policy in Maryland and California abort a baby up to 38 weeks is not going to happen. Dobbs does not require that. Dobbs says state or federal officials can do it. Here's what I would tell the Republican Party. Be not afraid. Stand up for the baby all over the country. We're in line with France, for God's sakes. We're 3 months more liberal than the French. I'm confident the American people would accept a national ban on abortion at 15 weeks, with exceptions for the life of the mother, rape and incest, and reject the Chinese abortion policy being pushed by the Democratic Party. And if we can't do this for the unborn, what good are we to the unborn? And I'll tell you this as a pro-life politician. If you don't stand with the unborn, the pro-life voter is not going to stand with you.
So let's talk about voters, because you're doing this in the middle of a midterm that is tightening, and you guys want to control the Senate, and there are those who say this could cost you the Senate. Our polling out this week that shows that 75% of those who say abortion is their top issue that's going to motivate them and go to the polls, they're going to vote for Democrats. You've got Republicans now answering for this out on the campaign trail. You've got Don Bolduc up in New Hampshire who said this when he was asked about your proposal.
I will support no legislation, zero legislation at the federal level. We don't belong in the abortion arena. That is the states.
You got a lot of other topics that poll well for you. Abortion doesn't for Republicans.
Okay, let's look at it this way. This is a wrong track election. I hope the general wins. I hope he wins. I hope Joe O'Dea, who's pro-choice in Colorado, wins, because he'll change the course of the country on inflation, on border policy, on crime. But abortion is on people's minds. And here's what I would tell the general. The pro-life movement in this country does not believe the Constitution requires us to sit on the sidelines and watch a baby dismembered in the 8th and 9th month of pregnancy. We don't believe that. The Dobbs decision said it's up to elected officials, state or federal. So the position of the pro-life movement in this country that I'm representing today is that there is a place, a voice for the unborn in the nation's capital, and every Republican, except one or two, 2020 voted for a 20-week ban. And here's what I tell the general. When you're on the stump, look to your opponent and say, what restrictions would you put, if any, on aborting a child? And I promise you this, General, America is with you when you say at 15 weeks, almost 4 months, this baby can suck its thumb, all organs are developed, it shouldn't be aborted unless there's a very rare circumstances. The people are with you. The people are with us. The Constitution is with us. The 14th Amendment, for it to mean anything, means equal protection under the law. I am not going to allow a baby in Maryland and California to be dismembered at 38 weeks, a horrible death, without trying to help. And I'm going to keep fighting in that Capitol over there for the voice of the unborn. And this is a reasonable position. It puts us in the civilized world versus China or India. And Democrats are adopting China and North Korean abortion policies.
It cannot pass. It cannot pass in the current Congress. So is it just about making them take that vote?
So, you know, the Unborn Victims of Violence Act took me 10 years. I introduced it. It took 10 years to get a federal law to say, if you attack a pregnant woman and you hurt her child, you'll be charged with 2 crimes. It took me 10 years. Late-term abortion took 12 years. It will not pass tomorrow, but here's the question. Should it pass? If you come to Washington only introducing laws that can pass tomorrow, you're not much good for the country. Should we be a nation that allows abortion on demand like China up to the moment of birth? Hell no. We should be a nation that sets a national minimum standard of 15 weeks like the civilized world, like the French, the British, and the Germans. We shouldn't be an outlier. Until my last breath, I will be fighting for this cause in the nation's capital. There's nothing preventing abortion policy in Washington, D.C. based on constitutional principles or Dobbs. Here's the question for the pro-life movement. Are you going to accept the Republican Party who tells you Washington is out of business? I don't think you will. I don't think you should. I hope the general wins. Hope all our candidates win. We're on the wrong track on crime, on immigration, on taxes, on inflation, but the Democrats are trying to put us on the Chinese track when it comes to abortion. They're trying to create national law that would allow a child to be aborted up to the moment of birth. That's the wrong track.
Well,
our alternative is the right track.
They didn't have the votes to get it. You don't have the votes to get this. So we'll watch as this continues to play out. And certainly
will fight.
Will be...
We will one day get these votes, as we did with the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, as we did banning late-term abortions. We're the party against late-term abortions. The Democratic Party is for abortion on demand up to the moment of birth. The people are with us. To the pro-life leaders out there, be not afraid. There's nothing wrong with being pro-life.